Welcome to the episodes with Matt Pavich. I'm Matt Pavich, a mental health podcast mostly focusing on bipolar disorder. Today I'm joined by Sean. Thank you for doing this, Sean.
Of course.
Sean is a good friend and someone who suffers with bipolar. Is it bipolar 1? Or?
It is, on paper, it's bipolar 1.
Okay.
I've had full-blown manics, but I do think a lot of the time my bipolar resembles a little more bipolar type 2.
Okay.
But I feel like on the paperwork, once you've had that full-blown manic, they just don't let you not be type 1.
Yeah.
But I think like something I've found is like I respond to a lot of treatments and things that a lot of type 2 patients do, so I try and look at both.
Okay.
But my doctor will tell you type 1.
So what makes you feel like it's more type 2?
I think my bipolar resembles type 2 a little more. The people who in my life who I know who are bipolar 1 struggle with their manics a little more.
Okay.
I think the people who I know who are bipolar type 2 spend a lot more time depressed, and then their manics tend to be a little more in line with hypomanics that are manageable. I think, don't get it twisted, like I have plenty of hypomanics that are extremely destructive, and
Sure.
that are fucked up. I hate that. I'm hoping everyone at this point knows what hypomanic means versus manic on the podcast. But in case anyone doesn't, when you're swinging bipolar manic to depressed, there's this like hypomanic period, which is before you think that the CIA is out to get you and that you think you're like actually you're Jesus Christ, and before you start like walking into Google and telling them like, hey, I deserve a job, so I'm just gonna go upstairs. Before you get there, you're in this like hypomanic period
which is kind of the sweet spot.
So there is definitely, I would say the mid of that hypomanic place is literally the best fucking spot in the world. I'm actually at my best in every single possible way.
Yeah.
In fact, like my fiance, I think that's the me she likes best.
Yeah.
Like I think she would never acknowledge that, but like I think that's the me she likes best. I think that's the me she fell in love with, is me where I'm hypomanic before I start fucking stuff up. But I think even then I still get embarrassed. But yeah, so type 2. Type 2s, they have some hypomanics, but definitely spend a majority of the time depressed. And I think a lot of the people I know who are type 1 have had a few more manics than I've had. They struggle with making sure that like that hypomanic doesn't swing to a full mania. That's a little bit more of their concern some of the time. I also think certain treatments that have been type 2 treatments have worked better for me just as far as medication wise. Like things that usually work with type 2 patients have worked kind of well with me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I also might just be telling myself that because I hate all the medications that type 1 people go on.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm on a lot of the shit that type people 1 are on as well. So
yeah, I'm type 1. That's what I got diagnosed. How old were you when you got diagnosed? That's interesting.
Yeah. So I was really young the first time and didn't like it. It was so unacknowledged, like that I don't consider it. Like I thought that that's what they were calling the bad kids. Because like someone else that I knew in middle school had just gotten diagnosed bipolar. Before then, I had never heard of it before.
And they were just a punk. So
and they were just also got in trouble in school. So I was like, I got to go talk to someone because I'm being weird or whatever, and get in trouble. And they're like, oh, you're bipolar. And it's like, all right, that's what the bad kids get called. When you're like, when you fuck up shit in a classroom, I guess you're bipolar.
Yeah.
Cool. So like, I didn't think much of it for a really long time. I was in super denial, even though like then like, now at like my age you can like go back and life track and you're like, holy fuck, I was having manic swings when I was like 13. That was a manic swing. That was it's all
13. You remember that far back?
I would say so. I remember my first manics were definitely, or at least like hypos were like middle school. I would go through my first mood swings were middle school.
That's really interesting.
I would have depressions these are my pieces of evidence because you weren't fucking journaling, at that time. But like I have so many moments that I just remember. Like I remember periods where there were weeks at a time where I would explain to my parents, I'd be like, yes, like my life is good, but I don't feel good. Like I'm sad. Like I don't feel good. I don't like this. You know, and I'd be crying and tearful, and like I'd be like, I know my life is good. And I remember, you know, middle school. I remember periods of like just going to the bathroom to just cry. You know, to just literally just like take the pass. I'm not even gonna fucking do this. And like that as young as middle school. And then I also remember middle school periods where like I'm running through the hallways and I'm slapping people's books out of their hands, and I'm like, you know, just like high energy everywhere. Going and like again at that time, I guess that's why someone was like, you're bipolar. I didn't, you know, it meant nothing to me. No one appropriately explained it or described it to me.
Sure.
And then I went to high school and we just kind of like didn't talk about it and didn't use that. And I think part of that was just natural ups and downs. You know, I was starting to get a little more contained from where I was at for a few years. It was still surfacing, you know. But again, I think high school there were some hypomanics definitely, but a lot of depressions. And I think a lot of depressions, just especially like at the time that we were growing up, like go under the radar. Nowadays, like every like fourth graders are advocating for themselves. Like, I think I have an anxiety disorder. You know, exactly. There's a you know a gaggle of 9-year-olds on TikTok that are doing it. But like we didn't have that shit.
Good, but
it's great, but but we definitely didn't have that language.
We didn't have the language. We didn't know what was up.
So I was like, you know, all sorts of sad in high school with a little bit of hypomanics. And then college, you know, it was similar. I think I was able to start focusing a little more when I got to college. And then when I was in college, I got to focus more where like my high school, junior high school, you got to sit there. You know, you're sitting there all day, you're sitting there. You go to college and like, you could be hypomanic and you can fucking read the textbook in one night and like learn everything and circle everything and do whatever and get your work done. So I think I started channeling my hypomania into like
academia.
Yeah, and like productivity and being productive and whatever. Yeah. Sure, there would still be times where I would just have like episodes that were like really fucking crazy. Like you know, so much trouble with like money, so much trouble with girls, things like that. I remember one time I had like a girl who was like my friend for like a year or two who I had just started dating, and we had just started dating probably like 2 months and everything was good. And I had like a hypomanic swing. I had no language for what that was. Right. And just like quickly like fell in love with like another girl that I just like a random girl that I had just met for like a day that probably said 7 words to me. And then I just talked at her for like 9 straight hours with like, you know, her smiling. And she was like, this kid's great. And I'm like, I'm in love. We're going to get married. And I literally, like I had this girlfriend who I was literally building up for like years of like a nice relationship. And then like, I'm telling my friends and family, I met this new girl, we're going to get married. You know, like it was still at that point of like hypomanic.
Been there, buddy.
Yeah. It was still at that point of like, yeah, right. Exactly. And so I was having sort of still hypomanics, at that point.
This is in college.
This is college. And then I around senior year, I think things started to ramp up where I was sort of rapid cycling a little bit more. And then like, I left after college. I went to New Orleans. I did Teach for America.
Cool.
And then like there is when I just like was losing it. That's when like I was having like, you know,
you were away from your family.
Yeah, I was away from my
really
family.
Check on you.
And it was also a huge manic swing too. I think like TFA is like a bougie organization, probably shouldn't exist, but it's like they do treat their people nice. And I went from like, you know, just like, oh, I'm in college to like, I'm moving to New Orleans with 200 other super qualified people. They're setting everything up for us. Now I have like a tiny bit of money in my pocket, a lot of freedom. I'm out there in a new place, new city. I just shot the fuck up, like super fucking manic. Like I graduated college and I got a bunch of awards for graduating. Thank you. They gave me a bunch of checks. This is study hard, kids. This is what happens. They'll literally give you money if you do good enough.
Yeah.
And so they gave me like a couple grand. I remember getting like a couple grand in checks and having like maybe like 5 or 6 grand in like my savings. And then TFA gave us like, in case you need money to transition to move, here's like a $3,000 transition loan. So I had like probably like 20 something grand there, and then like went to New Orleans. Went to New Orleans. That shit just like
disappeared
in like a month. Like a month. I mean, you're just like, and again at that time, I had still had my bipolar diagnosis from the past, but when I had gone to psychiatrists in the year before that, I wasn't really focused. I was complaining more about my depression. And that was, I think, part of it. My first true manic swing was them putting me on an SSRI. And they put me on an SSRI because I was complaining about depression, and then it just sent me up to the fucking moon. So at that point I still wasn't using bipolar language. So like, I'm in New Orleans fucking blowing through 20 grand. I literally have zero consciousness whatsoever that this is like, that I'm doing anything wrong at all, and no one there had eyes on me who knew me already to be like, people who are meeting me, they're like, this is who this kid is, He's
fun.
He's
got 20 grand to blow.
He's got 20 grand to blow, and he wants all of us to go to Rihanna tonight for some reason. I don't know how he got 10 tickets, but he wants all of us to go to Rihanna. So let's go to Rihanna. I have no idea how we got this close. But yeah, guess we're at Rihanna.
I did the same thing, man. They gave me my college loan in a check.
And you spent it on Rihanna tickets.
Not Rihanna tickets. I bought a jacket, and I was just like a really fun, popular like kid who was buying lots of weed, and
you can make it happen.
You can make. This was the first time I had access to money and bars, and I was just dancing every night, not going to class, and I had no idea that I was manic. And it's funny that you talk about like high school and having depression before you understood what depression was. I remember one time, probably like a 3-week or 4-week span, where I went through my dad's closet and I found like all his old clothes, because I was just like, I need to like switch up my identity. And I remember going to school in like my dad's clothes from the 80s, and people just being like, "Are you okay, dude? Is everything all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just like, finding the new me, like." And I was wearing like jeans that were way too big. And everyone was like, "Are you okay, dude?" And I was like, "I think I'm okay. Like, I think I'm just really sad." And it was really like a turning point for me in understanding like something is not okay. Like, I'm wearing my dad's clothes from the 80s. I'm wearing a tie to school for no reason, and people are asking me if I'm okay, and I wasn't. But I had no idea of why I wouldn't be okay. I was doing well in school. I had a lot of friends, and it was just, the chemical imbalance that I didn't understand yet. And
I think everybody is in denial at first, no matter what. I haven't met someone who has been diagnosed who was like, "Oh yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, that's about right." Everyone is in denial, and I think for me, for a long time, there was plenty of I provided myself with plenty of reasons, right? I was like, I'm just a piece of shit, and they're just like saying, like, they're taking my piece of shit behaviors and they're like telling me it's something else, but really I'm just a piece of shit, and I'm probably like latching on to this excuse for me being like a weak piece of shit.
Same. Did you go through the big pharma conspiracy theory? Big pharmaceuticals just trying to put pills down everybody's throats?
I still think they are, but but I need some of them. I still think they are.
I know, but that was a big thing.
Some of them.
That was a huge thing for me. Was like, I'm totally fine. Pharmaceutical companies are pushing drugs down our throats so that we get addicted. This is horse shit. And there is a lot of truth to that. You watch these fucking documentaries.
Sure, they definitely, there's it for specific things. We're over medicating, right? Like we're should every person that we know have an Adderall script? Probably not.
Definitely not.
I would say that most of those people might, not need that script. and that is probably big pharma making money. Do most of the people we know with bipolar type 1 need a mood stabilizer?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was definitely in denial there. Like I also, one of the other things that I didn't realize, and this is, so after I go to New Orleans, I have this Mac episode, then I start getting,
help.
Yeah. And New Orleans is like the worst fucking place to try and get help. Like New Orleans doesn't even have a mental hospital, doesn't even have its own psych ward. You got to get sent to Shreveport if like when they institutionalize you. But I was lucky enough, like I went to like a couple doctors that were in New Orleans, that were doctors in New Orleans. One of them was like super good, and he just kind of had a way more of like he was a psychiatrist, but he had a more holistic approach of like, appointments were like at least 20 minutes long, where he's kind of talking to you about like, hey, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And one of the things with me was like, I would read these descriptions. First of all, I remember doing bipolar checklists of like, these are the symptoms, and I'm like, these are human symptoms, motherfucker. Everyone experiences these. And then like I like would show people who weren't and be like, look, how many of these do you have? And they're like, three? I'm like, you don't have 47 of them? Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
But yeah. And then I would read the bipolar thing, and I'd read the description of like what it is, and it would be like, oh well, moods last at least a few weeks, and moods last this long, and like a mood needs to like it lasts a long period of time, and like all these symptoms cluster together. And I was like, well, that's not happening. I'm sad sometimes, I'm happy sometimes. I'm feeling this sometimes, I'm feeling this sometimes. I'm like, I have these things, but I'm like, but it don't match up. It's not exactly what that is. And then after learning it, you have that in the back of your mind, and you start watching. Yeah. And you start watching, and you're like, holy fuck, it all comes together. Yeah. To the point where it's like, when I am depressed, all of the same things are happening. Yep. Like I don't have interest in stuff anymore.
That you love.
I have, literally, like I cannot enjoy something that I love. It's the weirdest fucking feeling. Yeah. It's like almost like a numbness. Like I can't.
It is a numbness. It's,
my energy's low. Like that's always the first thing I notice is I'm sleeping more. I'm tired more. Yep. And so I started seeing these things cluster together. And the same with hypomanics. Yeah. And like I started noticing like the times where like you can't stop talking and you literally feel pressured speech, they're also like corresponding with the times where like your ego is fucking crazy. Yeah. Compared to like the times where you're sleeping 14 hours a day, where you literally a compliment will fall through you. Yeah, it can't even, it's just ridiculous. So like that, I think, after I started seeing that, and that's when I like slowly started to understand like, oh, like maybe this is what you have.
I did the same thing, man. I was blaming everything: Lyme's disease, leaky gut. I was fucking looking for any excuse to not be mentally ill. And then same thing, man. I read some stuff on it, and I was like, this is the human condition. What are you talking about? Yeah. Everybody goes through this. And then it was like, oh wait, no, they don't. Yeah. This is specific to you and other people that suffer with bipolar, and you got it, kid.
And that's the crazy part too, is that the place that it is universal is within the people who have it. Like I can't believe, like it's not as shocking that me and you have similar experiences. We're pretty decently similar people, like we're friends. But like the fact that there's like a 50-year-old lady in Wisconsin who could write a memoir, and
that's
like
spot on.
I read it and I'm like, how is she telling my fucking story right now? Like, how does this lady know every single, like she's literally saying things that are like experiences that happened to her that happened to me. Yeah. Like, and how is there
30 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable, dude. That book, what is it called? The memoir.
The memoir in 3D. That one.
No, Brain on Fire.
Oh, Brain on Fire. Yeah.
Yeah. This woman is, and I'm depressed while I'm reading it, so I can hardly formulate a thought, and then she is bringing to life everything that I've been trying to tell doctors and my mom and my dad, and it's word for word exactly what's going through my brain, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
And same troubles, same difficulties. Like we said, like we just picked a random fucking example of like the things, and they're all commonalities. Everyone is doing the same shit. Like even people who I know girls with bipolar that, again, their lifestyles are entirely different from mine, and they have
shared experience.
When they're manic, they're the same. They look just the way that I look when I'm manic, you know, and their depression looks the same. It's definitely crazy.
So do you think that like getting diagnosed at a younger age gave you a leg up in any way, or were you sort of just refusing?
No, I don't think it gave me a leg up. I don't think it gave me a leg up, and I think that because I didn't utilize it at all. I think the place it might have given me a leg up was when I was starting to convince myself, like, to finally overcome the denial. I think like you need so many things to build up on paper, right? Like I'm like, okay, I've watched this for a year now, and I'm like starting to see maybe this is what the guy said it was going to be. And then you start going back and looking at your whole life, and you're like, okay, maybe that was right. And then you're like, okay, they've been telling me this since I was a kid.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it helped then, but it did not, there was no one, and I think that's a reflection of both the state of mental health in general, both then and now, of just treatment and like education and awareness. Like, I think we're getting better. I think we're getting better at providing kids with general language and general like tools to use for their own mental health to like try and like self-regulate. I don't think we're educating even bipolar patients about what bipolar disorder is and how to live with it.
Right.
That's just not happening.
No.
Like treatment right now for bipolar, you can take your pills, and your doctor who's giving you your pills is like, you know, you can hope to find someone who's amazing and is going to maybe like be more than just like a vending machine style for your, like, you know, to get your pills. Bro,
that's exactly what it is. They ask you 20 questions.
It's a flow chart.
Yeah.
So they go down the flow chart, and then if
any thoughts,
and
with
if
this?
you tried the next, and then if they go with the med, it's like, okay, this is what you have. I've decided this is what you have. You go to this med first. Yeah. And then if that doesn't work, you go to this med, and then if you can't tolerate it, this med. It's just flow chart, and it's really impersonal, and it's not. They're not explaining shit to you.
Nothing.
Like I've had to learn about this by fucking up over and over again. You know,
Same.
like we've had to just like fall on our face.
Yeah.
And that's how you learn. No one. And then sure, there's therapy, and therapy is great, and CBT is great. It's changed my fucking life. Everyone should go to therapy. It's amazing. But it's not designed to teach us about how to manage our bipolar.
Mood swings, yeah.
It doesn't teach us what a mood swing is.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you know, and I think I look at, it's scary to me how many people, you know, like we both lived years of our lives not understanding we were bipolar. We weren't not bipolar.
Yeah.
And there's people who live their whole lives not understanding
or
that
denying it the whole time.
Yeah, and like it doesn't matter whether or not you decide to identify as it or not. These things are getting in your way in some way, and I mean in some way, because obviously it could also facilitate so many amazing things, because there's fucking so many bipolar people who are amazing, and I think that hypomania and mania, you know, there's a reason they're linked to being creative and being ambitious, and working hard and like being successful, because it could be an advantage in certain ways. But even those people have all had really difficult lives. It's really, you know, so if you're in, it's scary to know how many people are affected by it and are completely fucking clueless to it.
I know. Was there like a single piece of information or like a book that you read or a memoir that you attribute to like really helping you understand the language and the feeling, and like what gave you the most understanding of, like, was there like a turning point where you were like, oh, this was really, really helpful?
Yeah, I don't think there was a turning point. I think there were specific moments.
Okay.
And there were like mood swing moments, especially when I'm at my worst, I rapid cycle. So my mood, like I can have a 2-week mood swing, and then I could have, you know, 3 weeks of mania, and then 2 weeks, and then that's when I'm like at my worst. And I think seeing the sharp, jagged distinctions, because like at that point, like I'm going like this, you know. I would say when I'm stable, I'm like, and that's a year. And then like when I'm unstable, it's like this.
Yeah.
So seeing the distinctions where it's like, yo, I knew yesterday, like I thought this thing that I just like recorded myself in the mirror, like doing was like the coolest shit in the world, and now it's a week later and like I'm watching it back
my phone in the river.
yeah, like, and I'm like holy God, this was just the most embarrassing thing I've ever like created.
For sure.
I can't believe I like sent that to people, you know. And like you understand, like you learn to not trust certain parts of your brain at times. Like I think it was functional for me to understand, like I can't be trusting myself all the time because I was continuously feeling embarrassed. I think the continuous feeling of embarrassment
and shame
is what like really started and it affecting other people.
Yeah.
Which is, I think in the last few years I've gotten better at working on me, but I think for the first few years I was working on me with the motivation of I have to stop hurting all of these people who I care about and who I normally treat really well, who I normally would go above and beyond to like treat them well and do nice things for them. It's like I can't keep watching them cry. And like seeing that pattern of like they're crying over something that like 2 weeks ago I like thought was okay and normal and I was right about, and now I understand I'm completely not right about. And like when you having those moments of clarity after I like had an awareness of the frame, I think those would be. So I think
So how do you document those moments of clarity? Like how do you document your mood swings? Do you have like a system?
I used to. Now because I've been pretty stable, I have like fallen off what I did for the first few years.
Okay.
But for the first few years, I mood tracked. I'm like a big data person in general.
Sure.
So like nowadays what that looks like is I have like a little bit.ly link to a Google form, and my Google form is like, like 6 questions long, and it's like, a couple mania and depression items. I used to think mine, it used to be a lot longer. I used to do a survey every single day, and it was like 20 questions, and it was like depression items, mania items, anxiety items, habit items, and I would try and do it. I wouldn't do it every day, but I'd try and do it as much as I could almost every day.
Yeah.
And I always thought I'm doing this because I'm going to figure out this pattern. Like I'm going to be able to look back and I'm going to look at like 4 months worth of it, and I'm going to be like, look, this is what's causing it. Like when I don't sleep well, I have a mood swing, or like when I am I'm seasonal, this and this.
Always trying to make sense of something that makes so little sense.
Yeah, and I think what it was a good exercise for was, it was just a mindfulness exercise, checking in every day with like, are you depressed or are you manic, or are you just sort of feeling a little bit in between?
And then it would chart it.
Yeah, and like I could answer these questions every day of like, okay, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling hopeless, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. I'm like irritable, I'm feeling an inflated sense of ego, all these things. And you can literally see, like once you see, oh shit, I've had 3 days in a row where like I'm putting 4s on all the mania items, you ask yourself why. Just ask yourself why, and then like start to check and see. But I think just doing that day after day and day after day, like started making me, now I do it naturally. Like I had to manually do it for years. I had to manually, literally fill out the bubbles. Now I think like every day I'm constantly checking. I think the issue now with me, and I don't know how much you go through it, but it's like, I have a lot of trouble. I'm good at saying like, I'm good at separating, like if I'm depressed, I'm good at handling negative thoughts. I've like figured that out. If I'm manic, I'm good at like identifying it quick and being like, here's my credit cards, here's any of my access to my money, here's this is what I need you guys to look out for, everyone around me. Like I'm good at those things.
I am not good at that.
Yeah. I think, I'm definitely good at those things, but I think when I'm feeling normal, it's still pretty hard for me to trust my feelings and thoughts on things because I know what it's like to be completely confident and wrong.
Yeah.
And that is what happens with this, this disorder, no matter how much that's why those like the checklist and survey thing was so important for me.
Yeah.
Early on was because like, you don't see the pattern, you're happy for a week and you're like, I'm having a good week. You don't want to say I'm hypomanic. Now I'm at the stage where like I'm happy for 2 days and I'm like, is this hypomania? And it's like, nah, you did just have a
good ass week.
A good week.
Yeah,
you're allowed to have a good week.
You're allowed to have a good week. You're allowed to have a bad week. Is such a fucking hard concept once you've been diagnosed with this shit.
Yeah.
Life is good. I should be feeling
good.
Good. I deserve happiness. I can yell sometimes. I can get upset. It's like, but man, it's such a fucking mind fuck. So how did you create this system yourself? Or
it's basically, it's the same scale that they use if they're doing a triage and they take you in and they're asking you questions, how often have the same thing that I think a lot of people when they go to a therapist or psychiatrist will make them, how frequently have you felt this? How frequently have you felt this? It's a very similar scale to that.
Where did you find it? I'm just curious. Like, I feel like it could help.
You could Google it pretty easily. I can't tell you what an exact name of it is.
Okay,
but
maybe you can send it to me. And we could put the link in the bio. And,
any of the bipolar. If you look up bipolar scales, they're pretty similar, and it's usually like 4 to 6 depression items and 4 to 6 mania items that are just like where it's like a Likert scale, so like 0 to 5, how intense is this? Do you strongly agree with this? Strongly disagree?
Of course. Yeah. That's what my psychiatrist asks me every month. Just a couple questions.
Exactly.
And then he says, all right, go to the Walgreens and pick up your meds. And I go, really? That's what you do? That's your whole job? Yep. I could 100% do your job.
Yeah, you could definitely do that.
No offense. I'm sure there are good psychiatrists out there. I'm just
find us. Find us.
One. Yeah.
Find us, please, if you are out there.
If you are out there. All right, So, what I asked you, what are your best tools and for fighting this mood swing disorder? But
also meds, I guess, right?
Meds are huge.
I downplay it because I
you don't want to.
I don't want to. Yeah, it's like so hard. Because like I wanna believe, and I think my mom too wants to believe that like there's a world where we're gonna be able to reduce my meds until I'm on up to nothing, and I'm like, also like we haven't done that, and that's why I haven't been crazy. That's why I haven't been crazy.
Did it take you a long time to find the right medicine that worked for you?
I think definitely. I think it's it's interesting. I mean, I've been on lithium forever, and I'm still on lithium. But the drugs, the cocktail that goes along with it. I've had to try so many things, and I think it didn't feel like I found when I found the one that I'm on now. It didn't feel like I found what was this is gonna make me successful. This is the one that's like the best one for me. It felt like the side effects were bearable.
Yeah.
Because for the first like 2 years, some of the drugs they put you on are fucking horrible.
Horrible.
Like there's no way. There's especially like we're saying that like flowchart shit where they just fucking like you get diagnosed. Like the when I was an adult and I went back and I got re-diagnosed that first time, like senior year of college or around the TFA time.
Yeah.
I had a 5-minute intake. A 5-minute intake. She asked a couple questions. She goes, okay. And I didn't say anything about my bipolar in the past. Like I did not say anything. No one has told me I'm bipolar. I said I was depressed and I thought I was depressed. And then she asked a bunch of questions. And within 5 minutes, she said, you're bipolar type 1. Here's a bunch of Seroquel and here's a bunch of lithium. For anyone who doesn't know what it feels like to be on Seroquel, it feels like, imagine you freebased Benadryl. that would be like what it is. It's like
For you. Not for everybody.
Some people can manage
people
it.
love Seroquel.
It works.
Yeah.
It works great, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with it.
No, yeah.
But it is
Personally-
a strong medication
Yeah.
to give to someone after a 5 to 10 minute conversation.
Yeah.
Especially when like it's like, well, what are your life goals and what are you doing in your life? Like at the time I was teaching. I have to be on my feet all day. You're putting me on Seroquel extended release.
Yeah.
You know, and then I would still have mood swings on it, and they'd be like, all right, let's up the Seroquel.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so you're just making me fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
You're making me exhausted and hungry. I have to just eat everything because that's another fun antipsychotic side effect.
Oh yeah.
And like it's a harsh med. There were a lot of harsh meds early on. I don't know. Do you handle antipsychotics well?
No.
Yeah, some people genuinely they're a blessing, but
I went through it, man. The first one, they put me on. It just pushed me into an even worse and darker and deeper depression. Like it made me not want to take it. So I quickly got off that one. And then once I got off after being on it for 3 or 4 weeks, I felt even worse. That was the closest I think I ever got to like rapid cycling.
Yeah.
I was in my bed, could not move, could not turn my brain off, could not sleep, was just in an absolute state of panic and anxiety and horror. The things that were flashing in my brain were just like shame and things that I had just done in my manic episode, realizing that I had just been hospitalized twice in 3 months, just processing all this information while also just being this numb vessel. I felt like I wasn't even a human being, dude. I forget which med it was because they've all blended together, and I don't really like to say like, oh, this med did this to me because it could be working for someone else.
No, it does, exactly. Some people's... I have friends, the med I just talked about, Seroquel, I have friends who God gave it to them to
the
save
meds
them.
that I'm on, I really feel like I figured out the perfect concoction. I know that these things can stop working after a while, and like that scares the shit out of me because I feel like I finally figured some shit out.
Yeah, I think I never get cocky with this thing, and that's something that people have to understand. Like I'm blessed to have had a few good years. I hope it's been a few. I think, but like. You know, you can
Isn't
like.
That's so sad, dude.
Yeah.
That we're like, I've had a couple good years.
Yeah, I think it was good.
Please continue the.
Yeah, and you just it's like I've just read the articles from a person in the New York Times who writes about how they were bipolar in college and then they got it under control and then they had their first kid when they were 32, and all of a sudden like this thing that hasn't reared its head since in 10 years is now back full force. And like that's you got to live knowing that you got to be vigilant.
You have to be vigilant,
super vigilant, and that's always scary.
Yeah,
that's definitely always scary. And I think too some of the meds it's hard because they can and this is especially with I think sedatives, like meds that do make you tired. It gets hard because if you are depressed, you also like an SSRI, for example, like a traditional antidepressant. You got like your Prozac, Lexapro, these things. Those medications were never intended for. Those are not maintenance meds. People are supposed to go on them when they're depressed, and it will help them work through a lot of things that they're working through. That when you are depressed, you are too paralyzed to be able to do that work. Like your system, like your body has been pushed into a place where it is really, really difficult. Like what your body is physiologically experiencing, it is difficult for you to get your mindsets correct. It's difficult for you to sort of stalwart and defend yourself from depression. So you take your happy pill and it boosts you up, and then you can go get your shit in order. You can go get your life in order. You can go get work a little in order. You know, you got that serotonin going now. You have that on your side. You can go to therapy. You can start structuring your life in a way that, you know, these are all mood disorders, right? Like whether it's bipolar or it's just depression, it's still mood disorders. You can structure your life in a way where like, okay, now I can wean off of these meds, and these are good meds that are helping me facilitate my life. A lot of the meds that they put bipolar type 1 patients on early on are designed to save us from ourselves by just like getting us like a little, just shutting us down a little. It's not helping us wake up and go get to work on time. It's not helping us feel a little bit better with our exercise. It's designed to not let me get fucking crazy and get like up. So it
a lot of them are seizure meds.
I take lamotrigine, Lamictal, which works for seizure meds too.
A lot of them are like seizure meds that they were like, oh, this also works for bipolar patients. So it is like just trying to get us to this baseline. You know, we don't want them to get too ramped up, so we're gonna give them a pill. And
I think I'm in line with the belief, like I understand chemically we can't be vulnerable and we will need maintenance meds. Like we will never get to live that life of people that like might be able to go on their meds at times when they need them and then go off them.
I don't think I'm one of those people.
I don't think anyone who has had a bipolar type 1 diagnosis is one of those people, because you're talking about like containing a chemical range. But I do think that like a lot of the time the initial medleys of cocktails that they prescribe bipolar patients, they don't help necessarily. They help stabilize and they help maybe protect you from yourself, but they don't help you build a life.
Right. And then people get turned off to the whole idea of
and then they don't try and experiment to find the meds that they like. And the ones that work with their body.
That's what happened to me for a long time. I was like, fuck those meds, dude. Seriously, I'm not taking anything. These drugs ruined me. You know, made my dick not work. Just all sorts of fucking crazy side effects. What? Like I don't even. Yeah. It was. I'm so glad, and I am hopeful for anyone listening that is struggling with medicine. There is hope, and you can figure out the right concoction. It does take time.
It takes time.
It takes a lot of time.
Is you're in it and you're like fuck, I got to commit to this for a couple weeks,
couple months,
and like really try it out, and then like that might not work, and I might have to then switch and try another little cocktail, and that, you know, but. If you're looking at it and if you're understanding how much this is impacting your life on a daily basis, that's for people suffering from any type of mood disorder. It's worth the payoff. Like it's worth the payoff. It sucks, and it sucks that while you feel like shit, you have to try and do things that make you feel like shit even more. But it's definitely worth the payoff.
And depression feels like it's never going to end, and then this feels like it's never going to end, and you're never going to figure out the right concoction.
I hate depression, man. I hate depression a lot. I really hate depression.
Really?
I feel like every you know, I have floated around some mild depressions in the last year or so, but for the most part I've been okay. I haven't had a major depressive episode in the last year.
It's the absolute worst.
It's literally, I remember the last 2 or 3 that I had. I just remember leaving them and going, I cannot do another one of those. Like I can't. I don't know if like I can't do that. I can't do that again.
You feel it creeping in some days, and you go, no, not these thoughts, because I know what's coming with these thoughts, and I cannot let that happen again, dude. I feel that so hard, being like, please let that be the last one. Please.
Now Neil Brennan has a good way of describing it, saying like it's being attacked by negative thoughts. And I think it's crazy because it's like, so like CBT, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, you go to therapy, you get really good at like, I have a negative thought and I'm gonna bat it down.
Shut it out.
But when you're in a major depressive episode, it's almost like you're having like almost racing negative thoughts, right?
Yeah.
It's like it permeates through every angle. And the longer that depressive episode is lasting, the less grounding you have. You know, because I think that's the other work that is, I think, the most important thing. I probably should have named that when you asked that question about shit that works. But like, when you are confident that you're mood stable, I feel like you have to do so much telling yourself, like, this is my life, and these are the things, and this is what's going on, and this is what I need to stay grounded in. Because once I'm either way, I'm going to start telling myself different things. And I know that I'm going to start telling myself different things. So I got to promise myself that, like, if I deviate from this set of thoughts, it probably is indicating that, like, my body is physiologically in a mood swing.
Yeah.
So you have to have that, like, that clear, you know, you have to have all of these things, like, oh, I have, you know, if I have no fucking self-esteem when I'm depressed, I have to remember that
it will come
most
back.
of the time, you know, or I don't want to say most of the time, because most of the time I'd be depressed, but when I'm feeling normal, I don't have that opinion of myself.
Right.
I also know that, like, I've written out every fucking accomplishment and thing I've done, and I feel good about all those things, and I can't deny those things.
Yeah.
So it helps you sort of drop it, you know, because you have to stay in that, like,
hopeful.
Yeah, that space that you created for yourself, that you know your brain is not the best interpreter of the current reality. So you need to have as firm of a conception of what reality is to be able to go back to. But then when you're depressed, the longer you're depressed, the harder it is to remember.
All seem like lies.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. They seem like lies. It's harder to believe that, because you start to not remember a time when you did feel that way. You know, it's easy 2-3 weeks into depression to be like, I remember when I was the man. But then you're like 7 months into depression, and you're like, what the fuck?
Who
like,
am I?
I hate everyone, and everyone hates me. And when did anyone ever like me?
That's real, man. That is very real. That's a bar. Speaking of bars.
Yeah, man.
You want to spit a freeze? No, I'm just kidding. Sean is
You know what rhymes with Matt Pavich?
Cabbage?
I'm glad you don't act manic anymore.
Nice. There we go. Sean is a battle rapper.
Yeah.
I don't remember your battle rap name.
Sean O'Shawn.
Sean O'Shawn.
Still go by Sean.
Sean. Okay. Yeah. So how is that? I mean, I feel like rap and comedy have this sort of relationship in my life that is detrimental to my career, because when I'm manic, I do love to rap, and I put out these very bad rap songs. But you know, it's a similar game, rap and comedy, right? You're by yourself. You need to have this bravado and this sort of confidence and this confidence that you are the shit in rap, or that you are funny in comedy. So I wonder for you, because I know it's affected me in a way that, like, when I'm feeling too good, I'm misunderstanding that this, it's hard to explain, sorry. Like, my confidence is so important to my success, right?
Yeah.
Like, believing that I am funny is so necessary for me to succeed. I want to be one of the greatest comedians that ever lived, right? That is something that I've told myself, but that also sounds like a manic thought. Yeah. Right?
But it's a functional manic thought, right?
Right.
And I think the number one example of what we're talking about right now is Kanye West, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think I look at literally, you look at Kanye's career since 2000, and you can, if you don't have a bipolar lens, it's so easy to just be like, he's an asshole and has a personality issue, and then when you have a bipolar lens, everything makes so much sense.
Everything.
Like, this dude, no one wanted him to be a rapper. He was a little motherfucker that dressed in pink polos and had a weird voice. Everyone wanted to keep him on beats. And literally what people have criticized him for is literally a hypomanic and manic symptom, but it's a functional belief. This guy has literally been like, no, fuck it, I'm gonna be the best rapper in the world someday. I'm gonna be the best rapper in the world. I'm gonna have a fashion brand someday. These are hypomanic and manic thoughts.
I know.
You know, like and that's separate from when we see him literally straight manic in public. And and I think he's someone. What sucks is like, he is a genius, and I do think we know that bipolar is linked to, like, there's scientific evidence. And when I say scientific, I mean like there's studies that, you know, they took like 800 kids, like IQ tested them, and then like didn't follow up until they were 25, checked who was bipolar or who exhibited like manic traits, and like those kids had higher IQs. Literally, like, there's evidence that like you could be super smart with it. Kanye is an example of a person who is incredibly smart, has been successful. So like, we've failed and embarrassed ourselves manic a lot. So imagine not. Imagine just like you keep winning over and over again.
Because you have so much money and so much access and so much power.
You just keep winning. I mean,
you keep leveling up.
You've won more Grammys than anybody. You just keep fucking winning. It's really like,
I always joke that I had my manic episode too far before I was famous. Like, if you're famous and you're manic, the tabloids go nuts. Your visibility, you know, goes through the roof, and like, it can almost be like a career move, which sounds fucked up, and like it is, because everybody wants to see the gladiators fight, and everybody wants to see the train wreck, and everybody logs on to watch Kanye fail. But really, he's kind of like winning in this weird, fucked up way, because he's sick, and you want him to get help, and you want him to get better. But like, this is my superpower is literally something I've screamed in a psych ward before Kanye came out with those bars. Like, it does feel like feel like a superpower sometimes. And I've 100%. Said, you know, Da Vinci didn't sleep, bro. Like,
I'm at my most productive. I like, that's
poets back in the day were like 95% of them were something.
There's also there's quantitative studies on this too. There was like
that book. I always forget the name of books. God damn.
There's been a couple of different ways that they've done quantitative studies on specific subgroups, where it would be like, okay, every like Eastern European successful poets in 20 years, or like jazz musicians in like this period, and it's always like 20 to 40% of them exhibiting symptoms like bipolar. It's really
that's
a lot.
An insanely high percentage of people. Like, if you look at the normal percentage of people that are bipolar, and then you look at like creative, successful people.
It's so overrepresented.
Not even successful, because a lot of them die penniless, and fucking, you know, all their fame comes after death, which is very sad. But like, that is, quote unquote, a successful poet or a successful musician. So like, I don't know, man. It's also linked to being able to effectively go after ambition, right? Like, I think especially we're talking about that sweet spot, right? Like, that hypomanic sweet spot is perfect, because you can be so ambitious and focused on just hyper focused on what you're doing, and having the energy to actually literally keep going through it. You have to be a little disassociated to say, I'm going to become a famous comedian, like, or I'm going to become a successful. But then that's the scary part, and that's why as good as those hypomanics feel, I am terrified of even having one of the good ones, because I know how close. Yeah, that it doesn't work that way. One day you're hypomanic, and then that night you're screaming through the streets. You won't know. No. You won't know. No. I find it is much harder to identify, like, when you're feeling that way versus when you're depressed. When you're depressed, you fucking know you're depressed in a minute. Yeah. When you are manic, you can go so much longer before it's even like a thing that, you know. Because it feels so good. Yeah, because it feels good, because it's not stopping you. Yeah. You know, it's not stopping you. It's not fucking getting in your way. Yeah. But then, like, that's the thing. And again, to use Kanye as the example, it's like, why did we think, I look at all of the types of shit, that fucking Taylor Swift thing, things like that, like,
this stuff is mad normal for a bipolar person.
Yeah.
That is mad normal for him to think it was appropriate in that moment for him to like walk on stage, grab the mic and say what he wanted to say.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like to literally think that that's fine.
I know.
And I think like people looked at it and were like, he did this thing because he's this fucking selfish asshole. He was probably drunk and he was doing it. And it's like, a bipolar lens just literally, he's just being a normal bipolar person.
Does it fuck you up that he no longer identifies as someone that's bipolar?
No, because I think because of what I said earlier about how many people are living in denial of it. Kanye is, as much as Kanye has maybe shouted out on an album, "This is my superpower," as much as Kanye has been hospitalized several times and every doctor in the world like that has seen him has said this is textbook bipolar, as much as his life has now been documented in front of us, and it's quite clear that he goes through depressions and manics. His denial of it doesn't do much for me because I don't think what Kanye says anymore does much for me. And I love Kanye, but I don't think I think Kanye is a beautiful, beautiful example of the power of our disability at times and like how powerful it could be, but it's also he's unfettered. It's unfettered. So you're also seeing what it looks like when you can't self-reflect. Yeah. What it looks like, and I don't blame him. I think like if I was that level of successful and manic, how the fuck could you possibly believe any of that shit, you know? And I don't think I don't think, and this is part of, I don't think the current state that we're in with bipolar, I don't think we're teaching bipolar people how to live with bipolar, to even understand what is happening to them through their body. Like we said, we had to learn by living through it, falling on our ass so many times, years of denial, and then still like every day checking on it and seeing how it progresses and talking to people. If you don't have that, it's not surprising to me that you're gonna just keep going.
That's a good point. How has it affected your rap battle career, right? Because I know personally my comedy career has greatly suffered from me doing horrible things on set and fucking up relationships with people because I was so how does that
definitely I could relate to both. I would say fucking up, I think of course again there's a sweet spot where like if I'm hypomanic, I can freestyle things that are like literally should be like written on like, they would be good written lyrics for many good rappers. But then once you sort of get to that point, I think you have confidence in shitty material. But also for me, like battle rap, one difference, like battle rap is intense emotionally. You have to manage emotions a lot. There's a lot of like, and I'm sure this is similar in comedy. You have to manage things like I just spit a dope bar that when I spit it for like 10 other people, they all like reacted crazy, and I just did it in front of a room and like no one reacted, they didn't catch it. And like in that moment, I have like 5 seconds, not even, to move to the next bar. Like I have to go to the next thing. So like I cannot let that shake me at all. So you have comedy. So you have to be really prepared for the smoothest transitions. Like it's not a big deal that bar just didn't hit. Who cares? You have 100 bars that are about to hit. You know that. Yeah. Don't let it spook you. When I'm manic, I'm like I get pissed quick. I'm just like I fuck up a bar. I'm like fuck shit fuck.
So you have battled.
I can't. Yeah, I've battled. Yeah, I don't want to say manic because I want to reserve that for like the full blown ones. Yeah, but I've battled on some high hypomanics where like and those battles are my worst battles by far. And even if the writing process leading up to it was a good writing process, I just can't present correctly. And then I think also as far as like relationships and things go, it's like battle rap is also like we're collectively building a narrative. Like it is it's very much about your league and your league's narrative and working with people. So if your emotions are all over the place towards people, it's sloppy because you're actually trying to sort of build something like WWE style, right? Like we might be talking shit to each other, we might be like doing whatever, but like everyone is moving together in such a coordinated way where we're trying to move along a narrative, and then like I'm getting like fucking upset about bullshit and like throwing a tantrum or something. It fucks up our ability to move that narrative, and like that, like battle rap fans, like people who are battle rap fans, it's a small community, but they're ardent. They're fucking obsessed with it. They sit behind their computers. That's what they fucking do. They love battle rap. Like, so like you really do have to present. You know, you're selling yourself. You're selling a identity, and you're trying to build up the identity of the people around you. So like, you gotta watch your mouth. Like I have a friend who's another battle rapper, Nanch, who also is bipolar, and he's had more trouble with this than even me, where like he will, you know, have swings, and then he'll just say some shit that just like he wouldn't have said, and it's public, and it's just
cameras rolling.
Yeah, and at this point he doesn't battle on I battle on my home league anymore, because like Lex, our league owner, has been like, all right, I can't, like, you know, you've just crossed the line too many times. And I think he is sympathetic to him. He understands that like we all, you know, we go through this thing, but at the end of the day, like when it detracts from what you're building together, then you really can't be around.
Yeah.
And I think I've definitely felt, you know, when my mood is off, I'm not ready to show up. You know, I can't handle a lot of those different emotional things. And
I feel that, man. I remember what I used to do was like, if I had something coming up that was big, I used to stop taking my medicine because I thought that would like propel me into like a hypomanic phase, and I'd be able to perform better, but would actually like fuck me up even worse in the depression, and like I couldn't even formulate a thought. And I did that once on like a pretty big show that I was filming, and I was out there, and I've never felt worse, dude. And I wasn't doing stand-up, I was on the show, but I can't imagine being depressed and having to do battle rap either. Like, it's such a high energy, you've always got to be one step ahead, just like in comedy, and I can't do that doing comedy. So I just wonder how you've
depression is really definitely really hard too. I am known in battle rap to be able to, battle rap has kind of changed a little bit since 8 Mile. It's a little different. It's not the same. Everyone thinks like when anyone who isn't a battle rap fan just thinks like I'm B-Rabbit, but it's a lot of battle rap is written nowadays. That's the way that we like it best. But there are many of us who still freestyle, and I'm known to freestyle. And like when I write my material, I write material open. I leave space for me to respond. I leave the places where I know I'm going to freestyle. I'm malleable when I like practice, so that I can like change my material on the go. If I'm depressed, I can't do that. I can't do that. Like, and if you look at some of my battles where I wasn't depressed, it's really hard. Like, you look at it and you literally can't tell. You'll hear a 3-minute round, and it's almost impossible to tell what wasn't. It sounds like we wrote it together. It sounds like I heard his material, and so I like wrote my response down and memorized it. And like we're writing together. That's how it sounds, because it's seamless. It's like, okay, I have a few bars that were written. I'm going to throw in a few bars that were freestyle. I'm going to change a few words here or there. Trying to do that when your brain is just like not pumping the way, because that's really just what it is, right? It's the opposite of that feeling when you're hypomanic, which is every word is hitting. Yeah. Every word I say is hitting. Why? I don't know. Like, but I feel it as it comes out. And the people around me are somehow affirming me, and they're like, holy shit, this kid's talking shit. Like, damn. Yeah. But every, like, even if I'm explaining a point about something, I feel the words coming out more beautifully versus like when I'm depressed, I'm forcing everything out and everything feels awkward. So I don't want to improvise.
Yeah.
You know, like, so if I have to battle when that, I don't want to improvise shit. I want to, whatever I told myself that I wrote, I apparently decided I was confident in it. I'm just going to try and get that off clean, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's also just prepping is impossible when you're depressed.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I love the aspect of prep for literally anything. So like I put time into you know, when I'm battling someone, I take it seriously.
Can't do it.
To manage your whole, like, it's hard to manage your fucking life. It's hard to brush your teeth. It's hard to get out of bed. How the fuck am I going to sit here and, like, you know, spend a lot of time and energy being creative, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on the episodes. That was some informative, very relatable to me stuff. Thank you for sharing. Where can they find your battle raps?
YouTube. Or the iBattle TV app. The iBattle TV app. You could go to iTunes store, whatever. Get the iBattle app.
iBattle app. We'll put it in the stuff below too.
There's some of the battles on the app are free. There's also a subscription. If you don't want to pay the subscription, watch the free battles and then go to YouTube. You can find a lot of stuff on YouTube. iBattle TV.
iBattle TV. Is there any last words you want to say? Or?
No, I love you.
I love you too, buddy. Thank you for sharing.
This was very fun.
Yeah, thank you. It was very fun. Thank you so much for listening to the episodes. Please like and subscribe and write a comment. If you have any questions, write them in the comment section. We really appreciate you guys for listening. And stay tuned for more episodes.